Metta World Peace. How you doing, sir?
Etan, what's up, baby? Long time no see.
Man, been a long time, man. Good to see you, man. How's everything going?
Shit, everything is great, man. Family's good. I asked you about your family. It's good to see you doing well, and everything is great. It's just been busy with
Mhm.
different things, with some business, some basketball,
Yeah,
family, just staying busy, and it's been a blessing.
that's what's up. All right, let me wait. Let me. I was going to do the official intro. Let me get the official intro. He played 19 seasons in the NBA. Played his college ball at St. John's. Was drafted 16th by the Chicago Bulls in 1999. In 2001, he signed with the Indiana Pacers, where he won the NBA Defensive Player of the Year and was named an NBA All Star in 2004. He should have had more All Stars, and he should have had you should have been on the Olympic team, but we could talk about that later. In 2009, he signed with the Lakers and helped them win a championship. In 2010, my man, Metta World Peace. How you doing, sir?
Yes, sir, man. Thanks for the intro. Everything is great, man. Long time from college days, huh?
Oh man, those epic battles. You know that battle in the Garden in the Big East tournament, in the semifinals, and it was an overtime game.
Yeah.
That was you and Eric Barkley and LeVar Postel, and it was such a great epic game. You know what I mean? That was the
Great
biggest
game.
basketball. Is really Big East basketball. That was special.
Let me ask you a question about Connecticut. So I never got a chance to ask you this. How
Uh,
was your battles with Connecticut?
So Rip Hamilton was the man, you know what I mean? So he was the truth, and then the others just did all the other things, you know. So they
Yeah,
were, they were solid, Khalid Alameen.
solid
Um,
team.
you had Jake Bosco, Kevin Freeman, Edmund Saunders, all those guys, and they all filled in the spots. But Rip Hamilton was the man, and he,
Hamilton
was
was really
professional.
good.
Now, what was your experience like
Tough,
that?
just a tough team. St. John's beat them the next year when I left to the league, but the year before that we lost. It was just a great team. Kelly Alameen, but Richard just running around the floor, mid-range game, just sick
Yeah.
and a lot of energy. Man, I was interested to hear your take on them because that was a tough team.
No, they was tough. They was tough, but y'all was tough too, though. Well, it was just tough battles. Every single night was a battle in the Big East, no matter what the rankings were, or anything like
Yeah,
that. It was just a battle. That was
yeah,
great times, great times. But
definitely.
let me ask you this. So we was, so we'll tell everybody the story, the backstory. We, I just interviewed Monica McNutt on the Collision, Sports Podcast Collide, and we were talking about coaches for the Knicks. And there's a lot of coaches that have been, since Thibodeau had been fired. So there's a lot of coaches whose names have been kind of thrown in there.
Yeah.
And then so, you were like, hey, wait a minute now, don't forget my name. And I was like, oh, okay, man, hey, you can come on Rematch. We can talk all about it. So, hey, so the first question that I think everybody wants to know is, are you serious about wanting to be the next coach for the New York Knicks?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I saw the story, I saw some players reporting, and I'm gonna respect where people get their reports from. And you might know an agent, general manager, you hear what's going on, you hear the names, but it's the same names, right? And respectfully, if you're not signed, to people in the know, then it's hard for you to put your hat, even though you might be qualified. For me, I've been wanting to coach for a long time. When I was my last years with the Lakers, I would coach Palisades Girls High School under head coach Torino Johnson after my practices. I did some mentorship, like any vet, did some mentorship with the players. Also went to the G League part-time because I still wanted time to spend with my family after such a long career.
Mm-hmm.
So after my Palisades stint, then I went to Cal State LA, where I coached under Torino Johnson as an associate head coach. And so my experience came over the last 7 years taking a school that was, not in the NCAA tournament for, 20, 30 years to getting them back to back and being on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at how we played Stanford this year, the coach actually complimented us, and it's all documented on Twitter. She said really great things about how we played the game. So yeah, it's Division II women's basketball, but I feel like it prepped me in terms of just coaching, right? Being ready to go through the emotions and win games and get to practices at 6 a.m. with no NIL budget is a lot. It's more. I'm more battle tested. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone, but I'm saying I'm battle tested from the perspective of I don't get a salary for this job. It's really difficult. And then on top of that, I was reaching out to some people, and it's okay. People got things they got to do, but I was expecting a call back. If you give me your number and you say you're gonna call me,
Right.
and you don't, I lose out on that experience.
Right.
That happened multiple times. So if your take is okay, I'm just not gonna call Metta, you know, because whether I'm not important or whatever, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to still prepare to win a title as a head coach one day. So I'm not going to let that deter me from my goal. So it's like if I got to work on my game and there's not a gym and I got to go work on outside on the concrete, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to wait till tomorrow to go to a gym.
Right.
No, I'm going to go on the concrete and get better and come back ready. So now when you look at 10 years experience and everything that I've done, people never heard me come out like this. And it's not like I'm asking for other teams. I got one goal. Now, yeah, I did want to coach for the Bucks. So I sent them, I'm really easy. I sent a direct message to their Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that the right way to go about it? No, but they would have quickly found out that I was serious. But since they didn't respond, it's okay. Like, I literally sent a DM to the social media on Twitter. Like, I would love to head coach your team. And then I also tried to get to Charlotte. So I'm not saying I only want to stay in my box, which I want to be in Indiana, which Carlisle is doing an amazing job there. LA and New York, UCLA, USC, or St. John's, or my Division II school I'm at now. I have a map in my head on where I want to be personally. So it's not no knock against anybody else. So I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else. I'm just saying I've mapped out my life, and this is what I'm trying to do. I have a focus. And since 1999, you probably noticed, but since 1999, I've always been trying to go to the Knicks.
Yes.
I've been trying to go to the Knicks.
That's you mentioned that, and I've heard you speak about this before, and you said that there are people who, I don't misquote you, but you said something to the effect that there are people who kind of blocked you going there that aren't necessarily with the Knicks organization anymore. Some of them might be, some of them aren't, but that they had a little bit of hesitancy about you joining the Knicks organization. But you've always wanted to be a part of the Knicks. You grew up in New York. You're the essence of, Queensbridge. St. John's. I definitely understand it. But you've always had this love for New York.
Right. Absolutely. Like, our AAU career, even before AAU, look at the credibility, and then also the love for New York. The wins is there every year. We win everywhere in New York City. We go to LaSalle Academy, have an epic season, player of the year title. We go to St. John's. Now, we could have went to Miami. I was actually going to sign with Miami because my major was architecture. So I was going to sign Miami or Notre Dame. And then last minute, I went to St. John's. But a lot of New York people, they did not go to St. John's because of depression. They didn't go to St. John's because the friends and all this stuff and the media and all this stuff. Yeah. But I chose to go into that fire, and that was going to lead me into going to the Knicks, right? So now it didn't happen, which is okay. I'm not going to hold nobody, accountable for it, but it never stopped my drive and love for the Knicks. So, yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you this. What was your relationship with Coach Mike Jarvis, and what did you learn from him, and did you take any of that in preparation for wanting to be a coach one day yourself?
I always wanted to coach, but I didn't. What made me want to coach was when Coach Carlisle came to me one day in practice and said, "You're going to be a hell of a coach." And at that time, I was going through a lot emotionally. I was a young player. I was going through a lot. And it just caught me like a smack, like a cold smack. Like, what? He just said, what? I did not expect to hear that, because I'm detrimental to the team. I'm having problems in practice. I'm having problems in life. I don't feel like I will ever be a coach. I feel like I'm not worthy of that. So that really, I needed to hear that at that time.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I needed to hear that at that time, which gives me the confidence now. In terms of Mike Jarvis, Mike Jarvis is like a Phil Jackson, like a father figure. Mm-hmm. He was like Phil Jackson, but as a father figure. Relax, wife will make soup if you get sick. Mm-hmm. He had great philosophies, a great staff. He had a great staff, and he's a great leader.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that the trials and tribulations that you've been through, the ups and downs, the struggles, and the having to fall down and pick yourself back up. Me personally, I think that would add to your resume of being a coach, because then you can relate to a younger generation of athletes who are also dealing with their struggles and
Right.
are going to have to lean on, well, what's going to happen if I make this mistake, or if I do this here, or if I'm struggling with this while this is happening while I'm trying to focus on basketball. And I think that you would be someone who can definitely mentor them, and both on and off the court. I think that just helps your resume.
Yeah, I think it does. I think what doesn't help it is not going the traditional route, right? In terms of being on the staff. But the other piece for sure helps the adversity I've been through, getting on the other side.
Mhm.
The things I picked up, even in business, like when we was coming up in the league, it was about a few people was focused, but the majority of people was not focused on their business side.
Mhm.
We came up of a whole different era, and being able to adapt to now and get things going, working with corporation, where before I was never into working with corporations because just my mindset from going the whole 360 degrees. I think I have a lot of experience, you know, to be able to bring into that and to bring into locker rooms and on the floor, and let alone the floors. That's something different because I got a lot of experience
Right.
on the floor, in terms of being a focal point and then also coaching. That's a lot of experience that you can bring all into one. And also on the mental health side,
Right.
look at Phil Jackson, what he's done as a Zen master and a Buddhist. Look at
Mhm.
the stuff I've done on the mental health side, and then also what I have with Phil. Now you just get this, you create this coach that has a lot of that can relate and that understands the actual game.
So talking about as far as the actual game, what type of a coach would Meta World Peace be? What type of a strategy? One of the things that with the Knicks, one of the criticisms of Tibbs was that he didn't utilize his bench. What would be the difference of a Meta World Peace as a head coach as far as
Yeah.
if have with Coach Tibbs?
I'm gonna answer that in a couple of ways. One, I don't want to take advantage of the moment that Tibbs is having in terms of being fired. So I don't want to say what I would and should have done off the backs of him. This has happened before,
Okay.
as people use other coaches' flaws. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
What I do want to say is, I've, um, you need to utilize energy. You know, and everybody's different. The way people use their bench is the way they use their bench. I don't want to make a comparison, but I typically go low deep,
Okay.
as deep as I can. And I typically pay attention to the energy. And I don't want to give away too much because I want to save some for when I coach. I want to save some for myself to get the job
That's
when
it.
I get the meeting. But yeah, I would typically the energy is very important. The energy is probably one of the most important pieces, right? When you're trying to win.
The Knicks have a very special team, and the energy that they've brought to the city of New York and the electricity, and everybody was really excited about the Knicks this year. And from your perspective, the relationship with the fans, New York has always loved you. New York has always, really supported you. I remember, back to our days of St. John's and Syracuse, and just the way that you had this energy, and the crowd just, and that was also one of the reasons why I thought you would have been a great player with the Knicks, because of the energy that you play with, and
Yeah.
that tradition. John Starks and Anthony Mason and Charles Oakley, those years, like you embody that. But talk about how special the Knicks fans are, and how they really would wrap their arms around you, being a part of the organization.
Yeah, the Knicks treat me well. Let me say that to start. The organization treats me well. I do a lot of community service for the Knicks. This is definitely coming from a different angle.
Mhm.
I didn't even notice was available, but I think the fans will love it. Some people don't understand my history in New York, like new fans. They don't understand the resume I built up from winning 3 titles at UDC, Millbank, Minnesink, 119th and Second Avenue, Kingdom, 3 championships at Rock, at Gershwin Park, the old Gershwin Park, Gun Hill. They don't understand the lineage that I built up with the basketball minds of New York City, then St. John's, and then it goes from there, right? But the hardcore fans do. So I do have some questions to answer, such as the ones you asked. A lot of people are asking the same questions, and I just didn't want to leave those questions unanswered, which is why I'm doing media. I'm not doing media to necessarily put pressure on me. I love the Knicks. I'm going to support them whether they hire me or not. Now, I'm not saying I don't want them to hire me, because people say, oh, Metta said he's okay with being an assistant. That's not what I'm saying in this moment. In this moment, I'm saying I want to be head coach of the New York Knicks and bring a title to New York City. That's my focus in this moment in time, right? But it would be embraced. The fans will quickly understand that we are getting it going, right? And they will quickly be happy with it, such as I would be happy with New York winning the title with or without me, preferably with me.
Right. So you said in different capacities, because there's a lot of different ways that you could be involved in the program. Would you be open to being on the bench, or being an assistant coach, or being a part of the coaching staff in any capacity, even if it's not a head coach?
Respectfully and humbly, no.
Okay.
Respectfully and humbly and graciously, no. I say that because now, in terms of continuing to do community service, I love doing community service for the Knicks. I do it for the Pacers, Lakers, so I want to keep that relationship going. I love the Knicks. They're awesome. They're great. This opportunity, you can't just pass up on. You got to understand, I was on vacation. I did not expect this. I expected to be on vacation, go get my little coffee in this little town I was in, and go back to the river and hang out. When I got the notification, I'm like, oh, my goodness, but I'm ready for this moment. I always wanted this. I was ready. I was actually calm, and I got to work. I got to work in the position of no position, because I don't have an agent. I'm not in the know. I had to go and tell people, hey, I want to coach the Knicks, and that had to go viral. And then, how serious are you? Oh, well, I'm gonna show you how serious I am and what I've been doing over the years. So, but in terms of if anybody ever needed me, like, to help, I love basketball. I literally coach for free. That's just a phone call. Just call me and I'll just come to the practice for free. Like, you don't need to pay me to come to practice, especially to help the Knicks. Like, so I say that because, like, I'm always available, for players or anybody that feel they might need some help or even want it. That's free. That don't cost nothing. But in this moment in time, because it's been so long since we won, and I've been preparing for this moment. Like, I never said, oh, I want to coach and take another assistant's job, or not take, but just be in a slot. I'm like, oh, he got that slot. You know what? I'm not even going to apply for that slot. Like, I'm happy people getting their money. But at some point in time, as a New Yorker, we got to put championship first. So for me, it's about, okay, if I got to carry it on my back, I just carry it on my back respectfully with a team and a group and organization. But I'm saying I got to make that initial push. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sit back if the shot's available. I'm not going to sit back and just watch the rim. I'm going to take the shot. And that's what this is right now. And I think what people are understanding is that I understand the game. I'm not just some ratchet.
Right. And let me ask you this. I think a lot of people would like to hear your breakdown of the NBA Finals, just to hear you talk basketball a little bit more. And I think that the Pacers, which is your old team, they really stunned everybody with that first win. They beat the odds. I think the odds really had the Thunder winning quite handily, especially in that first game in Oklahoma City. What are the key elements of the game that you saw from your perspective, of a coach's eye, that really propelled the Pacers to be able to win that first game?
I'm gonna start with Rick Carlisle, and then when you talk about the adjustments, I saw 4 adjustments this year from Coach Carlisle. The first adjustment was what the fans know, was saying, or you would say an old school player, oh, the game is soft. Everybody's shooting so many threes. So the rules were as it was last year, not in the playoffs. Then you saw the rules change throughout the season. If you look in the playoffs now, there were fans saying, man, I can't watch the league no more because it's soft. I'm saying, I don't know what game y'all watching. you're not even watching. You're just going off quotes from 2 years ago. You're just saying stuff. This is a physical game right now. If I am not mistaken, this is old school. So what Coach Carlisle has done was adjust. I don't want to give away too much of the source. I hope that's a great answer. Like he adjusted, and he's the most veteran coach in the game in the semifinals. He had the most experience from that perspective. If you look at his adjustments, it's incredible. Even how he's playing, I don't want to get too much into it, but because I don't want to give away his secret sauce because I played for him and I want to see the Pacers win the title. I want to tell everybody, all my Knicks fans, I'm sorry. I'm actually shooting myself in the foot, but it don't matter. I want to see the Pacers win this year, and I want to coach the Knicks next year. But the adjustments he made at the point, and you guard screens very well. You wasn't sitting back on the screens, Etan.
Right.
As big as you were, and as fast as these guards were, you picked and choose your spots, and he's doing that all over the floor. And I don't want to give too much away what I see because I don't want to give OKC anything. I love OKC, and I don't want to give it too much.
Right. How do you see as somebody like Tyrese Halliburton and his success that he's had, especially as I didn't really understand the voting from the players of the most overrated. And I like when a player proves people wrong, even if they're his own peers. Of course, I didn't like him, in defeating the Knicks, but I got to give him his props because he's proving a lot of people wrong. Right. What is your assessment of his game and the game winners that he consistently knocks down every series?
He inspired me, and he's taking the shot. I mean, he reminds me of 1.5 Reggie. I'm not saying he's the greatest pacer ever. What I'm saying is he's 1.5 because he can dribble. He's Reggie Miller with a handle. This guy is Reggie Miller with a handle. How lucky can the Pacers be to get Reggie Miller with a handle? He don't have a statue. I think the courage he has to take those big shots. I mean, even when you look at his form, it's very unorthodox. He starts here, then it goes here.
Right.
It's like it's hard to even see. Reggie had the old hit here.
Right.
Even that shot that went against the Knicks, when you're taking shots as a player, it's not about the miss. It's about did the ball drop in the paint when you shot it. If the ball drops in the paint, that means you had a soft touch. That shot in that funny form hit the back of the rim, went straight up and just dropped straight in. That's how soft his release is.
Right.
On top of that, he got that movement. He's attacking. I think McConley helped him tremendously. If you look at that Bucks game, when it was down and out, they started driving. He started driving. Even the game before that, McConley came in the game. Everybody was shooting threes. McConley changed that whole series, and he changed the trajectory of a champion or being out against the Milwaukee Bucks by getting into the game and driving the ball to the basket. If you go back to the game when it was 45 seconds and it was down, and I told him after the game, I said, "You changed the game." I got a chance to go in the locker room. That's a luxury to be able to go into even as a former player, it's a luxury to be able to go into the locker room after the game. So I was able to go in the locker room, and I was like, "Man, you changed the game by driving." And I'm sure he knew that, but I just wanted to tell him. And now you see in real time, Halliburton made the adjustment in real time during the playoff season, which is like really impressive. This kid is next level.
Just to hear you talking about a little bit more about basketball, I think this is great. It's great for the audience to hear you, just breaking things down. Talk to me about Pascal Siakam. He got the, MVP for the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah. I thought he was amazing. The way that he, has played, and a lot of people have known that he's had this in him. Right. He's really shining in these playoffs, and is one of the main reasons why they got past the Knicks, to be honest with you. But tell me about your assessment of him.
Well, let me start here. He's tied for the greatest small forwards in Pacer history. I think I'm one. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I'm not going to say I'm 100% right, but I'm going to say I'm one because I have Defensive Player of the Year. It's the biggest award there.
Okay.
And he has an MVP in the conference finals. I don't want to get much into it. I don't know who was watching Halliburton, I don't know if they thought Halliburton was the former political guy. They, that was somebody got it wrong. It should have
Okay.
been shared, but I don't want to get too much into it because I love the Pacers.
Right.
I'm saying this guy, if they win the title, when they win the title this year, his jersey will be retired. I believe. I believe Tyrese and Turner jersey is going to be retired. I'm hoping Jermaine can tag along with that. But I also want to say he will have surpassed me as, in terms of in small forward perspective. He's better than me as a pacer
Mm.
if he wins this title.
Mm.
Right now we're tied,
Okay.
so he has the opportunity to surpass me as a pacer.
Okay. 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 Wow. Yeah. That's
He
you know,
does.
and I honestly, y'all, we don't have to get into it too much, but y'all were on your way to winning a title. Y'all
That's
were like
true.
strong. We don't have to get into it, but
That's
y'all,
true. That's true.
that y'all were
Yeah.
showing at that time, before everything happened.
Right.
People kind of forget what the score was of that game.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all were handily beating the Pistons.
And they had the whole team.
And
I
they
got I got much better. I came back averaging 6 points and a better defender. I just got defensive player of the year. So that was going to be my second defensive player of the year. And then I was on third team all NBA and I finished sixth in MVP voting. So when you come back, let's just do the math. If you come back averaging 6 more points, that's definitely first team or second team all NBA. And it's probably if I finished sixth in MVP voting the year before, like what does that even mean? And being I'm not gonna say the best because I still think Jermaine was the best, but there was something special happening there. But what I'm doing is with this team, one, I want them to hear this. Two, if they win the title this year, they carry us on their back because our whole team is waiting for this title. This is what's going to happen, Etan.
Mhm.
We feel like it's ours. Do you understand that? We literally feel like it's ours. Once they get this ring, it's just going to be the most incredible thing. So from that perspective, like they can have it. It's theirs. Like they're the kings.
Right. All right, I got you. I got you.
Does that make sense?
No, it definitely does, and it's great to see that passion, in you, and that excitement, in you. And I think a lot of times people, they want to harp on the past for negative reasons. A lot of times people don't understand that your past has, kind of propelled you to your future, and what have you learned, from the entire incident that happened in the Malice, and how does that carry you into your coaching? Because
Right.
like I said earlier, I think that you have a different vantage point with young players because of that. That you can say, you can't tell me about adversity. Let me show you what I went through before.
Right.
And so how has that really propelled you into your connection with players as a coach?
Well, I think just the adversity that I've been through, and then being able to sustain the game, and then also winning, on all aspects of life.
Mhm.
And that's really difficult when you're in a dark place and you come out on the other side, and you acknowledge it and you hold yourself accountable. You don't shy away from it, right? You don't shy away from it. Like you talk about it, and I think some players, everybody's different. Some people have their head on their shoulders, or they may have a mother and a father in their life, and they're okay. But not everyone is like that. So I think having that relatability, I'll learn from people also. I'll learn from players. They'll learn from me. And I think ultimately we have one goal is winning, but also winning in life. And I think, when you've been through what I've been through, I think it's so relatable.
There's another aspect that I think people should really hear more about, and I really have a lot of respect for you and Shamika Holsclaw in particular, the two of you, and the work that you all have done around mental health advocacy. And I think more people need to know about it and how important it is. You all kind of made a lot of young athletes now be unafraid, to have to not suffer in silence the way that so many athletes have been doing for decades, because there's just been this stigma on, if you talk about mental health, like that's kind of been a no-no, like you're not supposed to even discuss that. But you have really And I've watched you on the sidelines, just kind of, admiring you, smiling, happy, and proud of you and what you're doing for mental health. Talk about that advocacy that you've been doing all
Yeah,
around,
definitely.
not just in, like, around the entire world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm doing so many things on the board at UCLA Psych Ward. I'm about to join the sleep board at UCLA. That's one of the best things I've done in my life. I'm also about to launch my first mental health app, kind of an app. We'll get more into that later. But I think as players, when we came into the league, you talked about mental health publicly, they would have called you soft.
Mm-hmm.
And we know so many people in our locker rooms that was going through a lot, whether it was divorce or girl problems or health problems or stress. And we just, maybe went to the club and maybe, or maybe had a drink, and we don't realize that alcohol is a depressant. We don't realize these things until you have a big outburst. You come into practice on edge, going home on edge. But what you don't realize is alcohol is a depressant,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like these different things. And then you see players that's going through it. And yeah, they might have made a lot of money, and people might say, well, I'm not going to feel sorry for you because you made all this money. Or even while you were making the money, oh, you're untouchable. You're like Superman. That's not life. And that's why I was so open with it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily want to be open because people already had a perception of me, but I said, you know what? I got to double down on this because we got to give our players a platform to feel like, if they need a break, they need a break. Or if they want to talk about something, they can talk about it. Look at the stuff that happened with Ben Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to feel, you got to have a community of people where like-minded people, a safe space. And I felt my safe space was in the public. Now, not everybody feel like that, but I feel like my safe space was telling people that, yeah, I do see therapists. And yeah, you might think it's funny, but I'm actually having great conversation with some real therapists that's changing the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually changing someone's lives. So someone that thinks it's funny or crazy for thinking a therapist, you're helping someone else. So from my perspective, I feel like it was really important. I think Dennis Rodman actually was one of the first that he didn't talk about mental health in an organized fashion as I did, but what he did was go on Oprah and gave his life to the world.
Right.
He literally was telling you the pain that he was feeling, and people didn't even hear that.
Mm-hmm.
People did not listen to that. And as a fan, which I changed my number to 91, ironically, I get suspended in Detroit. That wasn't the plan. The plan was to honor Dennis Rodman.
Right.
You know what I mean? To show the passion, the love, and how much we love Dennis Rodman. It wasn't to be suspended in his jersey and to get Defensive Player of the Year in his number. That was going to be incredible.
Mm.
But when he did that, it really inspired me. I became more of a fan, and it made me want to talk openly, almost like talking for Dennis.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
When y'all won the championship in 2010 with the Lakers, and you got on the mic, you have the entire world watching you, and you thank your therapist. That was something that reverberated throughout the entire world. And I don't know if you even realize how much you helped an entire generation of young people and grown people as well, who would never admit that they saw a therapist, that didn't even want to. You know how, therapy, especially in our community, that's, and so what you did was really on a pioneer level, and I really give a lot of props. So like I say, you and Shamika Hoskall as well.
Yeah, Shamika too.
And the work that you do around mental health advocacy, it's really amazing and inspiring and brave of you. That's the word that I would use the most is really brave. So just want to tell you much respect for that.
I thought it was important, and I didn't know how much it would have an impact. I honestly just wanted to give thanks to where it should be credited to. I also wanted to thank God that day, but I was just so excited. I only thanked my psychologist, and I actually called her a psychiatrist. She was actually my psychologist. She actually texted me after and said, "Metta, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a psychologist." I said, "Oh," I didn't really know the difference.
Right.
It worked out because that's even more frowned upon. Thinking a psychiatrist, that's actual MD medicine.
Right.
So actually, I very rarely retract those statements because it gives people more freedom. Because a psychologist is easy. I'm just talking to somebody. I'm not on medicine, even though I never took medicine.
Right.
But I was like, I didn't want to retract on that because I thought it gave people more power.
Right. So you have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, a wealth of passion for coaching, and what's the next process for you? Because as people are watching this, they're like, okay,
Yeah,
so where are you in the process with them? Have you talked to the Knicks yet? Have you,
not yet.
contacted you? What's the next process for you to become the next head coach of the New York Knicks?
Well, one, I'm gonna say like I love the Knicks. I still want to do my community service with the Knicks, but this is game time, right? It's like, okay, this is on the same team playing the same game because I'm on the Knicks team. I also love the Pacers. But what I'm saying is, like I said, I was on vacation. I didn't expect this, but when you see an opportunity like that, it's like, oh, I want to.
Right.
I'm not necessarily, and you've been a professional for a long time and in the NBA, so if they fire someone, let somebody go, there's a process. Management meets, they probably talk to agents, they get their ducks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I was never a part of that row of ducks,
Okay.
if that makes sense. I don't even have relationships, like a business working relationship or even a communication relationships with front office in terms of teams. I just ask, can I get a job? They say yes or no, and I just keep it moving.
Got you.
But it doesn't mean my intensity and passion stops, if
Right.
that makes sense. I just continue to move forward. So from that perspective, I'm treading the waters from the perspective of not saying, "Oh, the Knicks got to hire me," and making a big rant. What I'm saying is, I would love to coach the Knicks.
Right.
And what's happening is it's a lot of components, but the fans, they want who they want. The Knicks got to do what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I got a situation now where I'm like, I'm talking to, I'm answering questions real quick. I'm like, oh, you got that question?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you said I don't have experience. Oh, you said I can't coach. Oh, you said this. Oh, let me address that right now. So right now I'm in a phase where I'm just addressing things, showing my experience and showing that I have what it takes. I'm hoping that it leads to a meeting. And if it doesn't, and if they pick someone else, I'm going to support the Knicks and hopefully they win a title. I'm going to always support the Knicks like I have been. That's never going to waver.
Okay.
But make no mistake about it, I would rather it be Metta World Peace on the front of that bench.
That's great. That's great. Well, much success to you, and we'll definitely help promote this as much as possible. Now, are you open to doing more interviews? Because I'm sure your phone is going to be ringing off the hook as people see, how serious. I think one of the things that happened where, which I saw a few comments, just doing a little bit of looking, is people were like, okay, does he really want to do this? Is this about this, or but now, especially after this interview, you're telling the world that you are very serious and you've told your qualifications. So now I expect your phone to be ringing off the hook with interview requests. Are you open to doing interviews with everyone to discuss pretty much everything that you discussed with me?
Definitely not everyone, because some people that you would do an interview with, they're just out to wait for the Knicks to have a bad day.
Hmm.
You understand?
Yes, definitely.
And I just don't necessarily have an interest in that. I stayed out of a lot of the way, so I'm not really interested in that. And then I'm also not interested in putting extra added value, extra added pressure on the Knicks,
Okay.
because if I go out and do this big campaign and I got a relationship with the Knicks, I don't want to overdo it, even though I'm not going to hide my love for the Knicks. I ain't going to hide my love.
Right.
Can't
I definitely get
But I
it.
don't want to I don't think I need to overstep, because I think people understand in the pulse of the city is like, ooh, Metta really want to coach. They know the city know how serious I am. So I think I've done enough in terms of, and I'm gonna still post and talk about it, but I don't need to search out too many media interviews, if that makes sense.
Okay, so Meta, last question for you, and then I'll let you go. I appreciate you coming on the rematch and being gracious with your time. For the last question, just give your final pitch to the Knicks and why you would be a great head coach for them, and just give your final pitch to them.
Yeah, I definitely think I'll be a great head coach because I understand the offense and defensive side as an anchor of offense and defense, and also as a role player, as I played a role. So having a perspective of both of those sides of the ball, it gives me the ability to coach a full out offensive and defensive team as a real threat. So I think that experience is priceless.
That's great. That's great, man. That's great. Well, much success to
Oh my
you.
God.
Always much respect to you. You know, it's interesting. I came across some old pictures of us when we took our trip to Kenya with the Player Association with Billy
Oh
Dunn.
yeah.
That was an amazing trip.
Yeah, that trip was sick.
It was absolutely amazing. But you've always done so much good work, and a lot of people don't even know all of the work that you consistently have done. You know, over the years. That trip was a long time ago, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it was you. Much respect to you. Keep doing your thing, and yeah, like I said, I'll be promoting this as much as I can, and keep pushing.
I will, man. Thanks for having me. Second time on your show.
I know that's what's up. That's what's up. All right, take it easy, Metta.